Today I wanted to start off with the Trump court case. Today there was a small victory for Trump. The bond was, excuse me 1 second. The bond was lowered from, I believe it was $450 million or something like that to $175 million. This is a small victory for Trump. Hopefully this is a sign that New York is realizing how absolutely ridiculous this case is. I mean, you have a fraud case where nobody lost money and everybody benefited from the situation. So it's lawfare at its finest. You have millionaires like Kevin O'Leary pointing out how this will cause investors to not want to invest in New York. The case, not this particular victory for Trump with the bond. And that this whole case will shake investors' trust in the U.S. I tend to agree with this. I mean, when you have fraud cases for something that's beneficial for everybody and nobody lost money off of it, I mean, it kind of deviates from the whole point of fraud to begin with. It sets a weird precedent of what even fraud is in the first place. I mean, legally, you could say that Trump committed fraud, but fraud obviously is more towards people losing money and getting screwed, not something that benefits everybody and everybody gets more money from it. So it's lawfare at its finest, and the whole lawfare that is going on from the left with Trump is really it's a big sign of a failing democracy. And you know, the left likes to talk about non-democratic countries like Russia, and they use democracy as an excuse to have wars like Ukraine versus Russia, that Ukraine is fighting for democracy and this is a democrat. I mean, it's been the US's calling card ever since like wars like Vietnam. They use democracy as a calling card to intervene in foreign wars and fight countries through proxies like Ukraine without having to directly fight those countries, and using democracy as the calling card and as the reason for it, and that we have to protect democracy. It's such a blanket statement that they throw on everything that it's what they're saying with Trump and how Trump can't be back in office. We have to protect democracy. You know, democracy. We have to uphold democracy not only in our own country but worldwide. But yet we have lawfare where we're throwing our political opponents in jail over fraud cases where it's not even really fraud. Everybody benefited from it. And you see it in Georgia, and these absolutely ridiculous cases that they're trying to formulate against Trump to try to hurt his image, even though it appears that every time one of these cases happens, he gets more support and he goes up in the polls because people are realizing what they're doing. They don't want him in office, so it's making them support him and like him even more. So their strategy is failing. Classified documents case is a perfect example of an absolutely ridiculous case they're trying to pin on Trump. I mean, I wouldn't be able to say this because I don't have the experience, but people who have been around DC for their whole life, who know this stuff, like Tucker Carlson have pointed out that everybody who's been around politics and politicians for an extended period of time knows that everybody has done this to a certain extent, including Joe Biden, which has come to light in the recent impeachment case. So it's not just Trump that does this. And it was at a very minimal level, by the way, may I add. So they're nitpicking and they're reaching and they're trying to find anything to pin on Trump to hurt his image and use names of crimes like fraud and try to make it look, I mean, you just look at the headline and say Trump committed fraud. That would make you think the situation is a lot worse than it actually is. So it's very strategic and it's hurtful to democracy. Whenever we go towards the route of throwing our political opponents in jail, we don't become any better than Russia. At least Putin won this election without having any of his political opponents in jail. I mean, obviously, I'm not stupid enough to think that it was a free and fair election. Obviously, there's corruption in Russia's elections, and if you speak out against Putin as a Russian citizen, you're putting your life in danger to a certain extent. I mean, like Navalny. So obviously I'm not stupid enough to think that Russia is a perfect beacon of democracy, but we claim to be the beacon of democracy worldwide, and yet we're throwing our political opponents in jail, or trying to. So we don't become any better than the countries we like to smear and say that we're protecting countries like Ukraine against Russia because Russia hates democracy. And yet what we're doing within our own borders is totally anti-democracy. I mean, it is election meddling to a certain extent. Trying to fabricate cases to keep your political opponents off the ballot. And I haven't even mentioned the case in Colorado where they tried to keep him off the ballot for the insurrection claim. I mean, look, there's a definition for insurrection, okay? And this does not fall into that definition legally at all. Trump didn't lead an insurrection. He didn't call for people to barge into the Capitol and change the vote and stop the vote from happening to keep him in office. And I'm not even going to go down into the January 6th rabbit hole with the FBI agents in the field that day, which was over 200, by the way, supposedly, according to Republicans who have overseen the case. But there's a definition of insurrection. This doesn't fall into it. They're trying to use loopholes and legal words, and well, technically you could say, it's absurd, and it's really sad to see because our democracy is truly at stake against the Democrats, and the Democrats are trying to say it's at stake against Republicans. And it's absolutely ridiculous. Anybody who's paying attention can see what's going on. Anybody with common sense can see what's going on. They're trying to keep Trump from being able to run for presidency. This is not a fight for democracy. This is not, we're trying to protect democracy. You have to protect democracy. Our country will no longer be democratic if Trump is in office again. Oh no, we've got to stop him. But yeah, they're the ones trying to throw him in jail. And the hypocrisy in that we're trying to throw our political opponent in jail to protect democracy is hilarious. So keep that in mind as you see these Trump cases go forward. What's really going on? This is not a trying to protect people who were hurt by Trump's fraud, even though, like I said, people, nothing but benefits from the fraud, right? So keep that in mind when you see, I mean, this is not going to end. It's only March of an election year, and if you notice, they're trying many different tactics. One doesn't work, they go to another. One doesn't work, they go to another. They try to get them off the ballot in countries based off insurrection, and the Supreme Court shut that down. All right, now they got to go to another. They go on to the fraud case. They're trying to find any little nitpicky case, the classified documents. All right, well, then that doesn't work, and you got to look at what are they going to try next. And, you know, if you go down that rabbit hole, you could come up with some very dark assumptions of what they may try next. I'm not going to go down there yet. But you have to wonder, what are they going to try? What else is in their game plan? If this fraud case doesn't come to fruition, like I don't think it will, I don't think anything they will try will work to keep Trump from running for presidency. Nothing's going to work. So it'll be interesting to see what they try next. I'm curious to see what else is in their back pocket to what they're going to try to keep Trump off the ballot, but we'll see. Never underestimate the left's ability to go above and beyond to try to complete their agenda. So we'll see what happens.